The mediation room felt impossibly small, suffocating under the weight of unspoken accusations and thinly veiled contempt. My ex-husband sat across from me, a pale, nervous shadow of the man I once knew. Beside him, his mother, Vivian, rigid in her expensive suit, her eyes like chips of ice. His sister, Clara, leaned forward, a predatory smirk playing on her lips. They were confident. So supremely confident. They believed I was broken, that I would crumble. But I had a secret weapon, one they never saw coming. I turned to my 7-year-old son, Alex, sitting quietly between us, his small hand clasped in mine. "Alex," I said, my voice steady, "if you had to live with one of us, your dad or me, who would you feel safest with?" The air crackled. Silence stretched, thick and heavy. Alex looked at his father, then at his grandmother, then at his aunt. He took a deep breath. His small gaze finally landed on me. And in the smallest voice he said, "Mom, they didn't cry when you did." My ex-husband's face, already pale, fell. It was a visible, shuddering collapse of his composure. Vivian gasped, a sharp, indignant sound. Clara's smirk vanished, replaced by open-mouthed shock. My lawyer, a woman of few words but immense power, simply closed her briefcase. The meeting was over. And so was their control. I wasn't supposed to be at his office that day. Not at that exact time. Fate, or perhaps a guardian angel, intervened. It was a Tuesday. A warm, ordinary Tuesday. I'd packed Mark, my husband, his favorite homemade chicken salad sandwich for lunch. Our son, Alex, 7, had woken up that morning filled with an unusual burst of energy. He insisted on giving the lunch to Daddy himself. "Please, Mama?" "Please," he'd begged, his eyes wide and innocent. I rarely went to Mark's downtown office. He always said he was too busy, too focused. I respected that. I believed that. Now a cold dread settles over me, remembering that naive belief. We took the bus, a slightly delayed journey through the bustling city. Alex chattered excitedly about his superhero drawings. I smiled, thinking of Mark's reaction, of his proud smile. We arrived at the sleek, glass-fronted building. The receptionist waved us through, used to our occasional, unscheduled visits. Mark was a rising star at his finance firm, and his office was on an upper floor, one with panoramic city views. We walked down the quiet, carpeted hallway, Alex running ahead slightly. The door to Mark's office was ajar. Alex pushed it open, eager to surprise his dad. And we found them. My world, my carefully constructed life, shattered in that single, horrifying second. Her legs were wrapped around him, a woman I recognized as his young, ambitious assistant, Sarah. Her blonde hair, usually pulled back, cascaded around his shoulders. His lips were pressed against her neck, a sickeningly intimate gesture. The scent of her expensive perfume, cloying and sweet, hit me before the visual did. Mark looked up, startled, his eyes wide with a mixture of lust and immediate, desperate panic. His face went ashen. He looked like a deer caught in headlights. He scrambled to push her away, a clumsy, futile attempt. Sarah pulled her dress down, a flush rising on her cheeks. Alex stood frozen beside me, his small hand still in mine, the lunch bag dangling forgotten. His innocent eyes saw it all. My breath hitched. I didn't scream. I didn't shout. The rage, the betrayal, it was too immense for sound. It was a silent explosion within me, tearing my universe apart. I simply stood there, numb, for what felt like an eternity, watching the pieces of my marriage scatter. Then I gently took our son's hand. I tugged him softly. We turned. And we left. The lunch bag fell to the floor, forgotten. That night, the house felt like a tomb. I put Alex to bed, tucked him in with extra hugs, trying to be strong for him, but inside I was crumbling. He asked no questions. He just seemed to sense the shift, the new, unsettling silence between his parents. Mark came home late, smelling of desperation and cheap perfume, though he'd clearly tried to wash it off. He tried to talk, to explain, to apologize. His words were empty, hollow echoes in the vast cavern of my pain. I didn't respond. I couldn't. My voice was gone, replaced by a searing ache in my chest. Then, the true horror began. His mother, Vivian, came over the very next morning, unannounced. She didn't come to defend me. She didn't offer a single word of comfort. She came in her perfectly tailored suit, her demeanor radiating cold authority. She sat on our sofa, crossing her legs with a dismissive swish of expensive fabric. "Isabel," she began, using my formal name, the one she reserved for serious, often critical, discussions. "Don't make a scene. This is a family matter. All men make mistakes. Mark is under a lot of pressure at work. Think about your son. Think about appearances. Don't break the family over one mistake." Her words were like a physical blow. One mistake? My life, my trust, my future, reduced to a mistake. She talked about our joint social calendar, about upcoming holidays, about how devastating this would be for their reputation. My pain was irrelevant. My feelings didn't matter. Only their image. Later that day, a text popped up on my phone. It was from Clara, Mark's younger sister, the one who always seemed to resent my presence. "It's not like you were surprised either, Isabel," the text read, its words cutting deeper than any direct insult. "You barely even work. What did you expect?" No wonder he looked elsewhere. I wanted to explode. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw my phone against the wall. But I didn't. I looked at Alex, playing quietly in the living room, sketching superheroes. He was so innocent, so vulnerable. And I realized that exploding, fighting on their terms, would only hurt him more. It would give them exactly what they wanted, a public spectacle. Instead, I filed for divorce. Quietly. No yelling. No dramatic confrontations. No throwing clothes out the window. No public scenes designed for gossip. Just cold, meticulous documentation. My lawyer, Ms. Davies, was a formidable woman with sharp eyes and an unflappable demeanor. She didn't blink when I explained the situation, didn't flinch when I presented the evidence I had meticulously gathered in the days after the discovery, discreet photos, text messages I'd found on Mark's old tablet, flight confirmations. Every piece of paper was a fresh stab of pain, but also a step towards my freedom. The divorce process began. It was a slow, agonizing grind. Mark, initially contrite, quickly turned defensive, fueled by his mother's outrage. Vivian hired her own high-powered legal team, seemingly convinced that I was after their family money, not simply my independence and my son's well-being. They fought me on everything. They argued over assets, over the house, over child support. Every email from their lawyer was a fresh assault, accusing me of being vengeful, unstable, and unfit mother. They painted a picture of me as a desperate, overly emotional woman trying to destroy their perfect family. Vivian even started appearing at Alex's school events, something she rarely did before. She'd bring him expensive toys, whisper in his ear, trying to undermine my authority. Poor Alex, I overheard her telling another parent once, loud enough for me to hear. "His mother is so distressed. She's not handling things well at all." I wanted to scream at her, to tell the world the truth. But I held back. I remembered Alex's innocent face. I remembered my resolve. I had to stay calm. I had to focus on the long game. The emotional toll was immense. Nights were sleepless, filled with replaying conversations, rereading cruel texts, battling a gnawing fear of the unknown. Would I survive? Would I be able to provide for Alex? Their words echoed in my mind, insidious and persistent. "You'll never survive on your own." The weeks stretched into months. The legal battles drained my savings and my spirit. My parents lived in another state, and while supportive, they couldn't offer much practical help. I felt isolated, trapped in a legal and emotional war zone. Mark, meanwhile, seemed to be thriving under his mother's protection. He moved back into their spacious guest house, his life seemingly untouched by the chaos he'd created. His assistant, Sarah, was quietly transferred to another department, a silent acknowledgement of her role, but no real consequence for Mark. The day of the custody mediation arrived like a storm cloud. It was the crucial moment. Vivian and Clara arrived with Mark, a formidable trio, radiating confidence, as if they were walking onto a red carpet, not into a legal negotiation. They believed I was fragile. They believed I was emotionally compromised. They believed they would win. They'd orchestrated a character assassination, painting me as an unstable homemaker, ill-equipped to raise a child alone, especially one who needed stability and the best opportunities only their wealth could provide, they implied. They had prepared documents detailing my modest income from freelance writing work I'd picked up, highlighting the contrast with Mark's substantial salary and their family's vast resources. My lawyer, Ms. Davies, looked at me calmly. "Isabel," she said, her voice low and steady. "We've presented our case. We've shown the emotional impact on Alex. But they've painted a strong picture of your financial limitations. The judge will ultimately decide what's in Alex's best interest." She paused. "Do you want to say anything?" "Anything at all, for the record." My mind raced. I could plead. I could argue. I could detail every single cruel word, every dismissive glance. I could expose their hypocrisy. But my voice, my words, felt inadequate against their towering arrogance, their carefully constructed lies. I took a deep breath. I knew what I needed to do. I shook my head. "No," I whispered, my voice hoarse, but firm. "Not yet." Instead, I looked at my son, Alex. He was sitting quietly between us, a small figure in a large, imposing room. He fidgeted with the hem of his shirt, seemingly oblivious to the tension, but I knew him better. He absorbed everything. He felt everything. I caught his eye. His small hand, which had been resting on his knee, instinctively reached for mine. I squeezed it gently, a silent message of reassurance, of strength. My heart pounded against my ribs. This was it. The moment of truth. I had to trust him. I had to trust the bond we shared. A bond forged in quiet suffering and unwavering love, a bond they could never understand or break. I turned to the mediator, a stern-faced woman who had remained impassive throughout the proceedings. "There's just one question," I said, my voice clearer now, cutting through the heavy silence. "One person whose voice truly matters." Vivian scoffed, a soft, dismissive sound. Clara rolled her eyes. Mark looked confused, a flicker of fear in his eyes. He knew me. He knew I wouldn't do something rash. I looked at Alex again, holding his gaze. "Alex," I repeated, my voice soft, but firm enough to carry across the room. "We're here to decide where you will live. It's a very important decision. If you had to choose to live with one of us, your dad or me, who would you feel safest with? Who would you choose to be with every day?" The question hung in the air, sudden and unexpected. The room went absolutely silent. Even Vivian and Clara leaned forward, their expressions shifting from disdain to genuine surprise. They hadn't anticipated this. They expected me to argue for myself, to grovel, not to empower a child. Alex's head, usually bowed, slightly lifted. His eyes, so wide and innocent, yet so perceptive, began to scan the faces around him. He looked at his father first, a long, searching look. Mark fidgeted, unable to meet his son's gaze. Then Alex's eyes moved to his grandmother, Vivian. Her face, usually so composed, was a mask of cold anticipation. He lingered there, his small brow furrowed. Then, his gaze moved to his aunt, Clara, who was now biting her lip, her smirk long gone. Finally, his eyes landed on me. He held my gaze for a long moment, a silent conversation passing between us. I saw the raw truth in his eyes. I saw our shared history, our quiet struggles, the comfort we found in each other. He took a deep, shaky breath, filling his small lungs. And in the smallest voice, barely a whisper, but one that resonated through the utterly silent room, he said, "Mom, they didn't cry when you did." The words hung in the air, simple, pure, devastating. My ex-husband's face, already pale, crumpled. It was a visible, shuddering collapse of his composure, a complete and utter breakdown of the arrogant facade he had maintained. His jaw went slack. Vivian gasped, a sharp, indignant sound, but this time it was laced with something else: horror. Clara's smirk vanished entirely, replaced by open-mouthed shock, her eyes wide with a dawning realization. The mediator, usually so professional and detached, looked visibly moved, her gaze softening. The truth, stripped bare by a child's simple observation, was far more powerful than any legal argument. It spoke of empathy, of emotional absence, of the true cost of their callousness. My lawyer, Ms. Davies, a woman of few words but immense power, simply closed her briefcase. The sharp click echoed in the silence. Her eyes met mine, a flicker of grim satisfaction. The meeting was over. And so, truly, was there control over my life, over Alex's life. The mediator cleared her throat, her voice now softer, laced with a hint of compassion. Given the child's clear statement, she said, her gaze fixed on Mark and his family, and the evident emotional distress, I think we have a definitive path forward. Mark tried to stammer out a protest, something about Alex being confused, about brainwashing. Vivian opened her mouth to argue, but Miss Davies cut her off with a firm, polite gesture. The child's welfare is paramount. His perception of safety, of emotional support, is deeply relevant. Weeks later, the official divorce decree arrived. I was granted full custody of Alex. Mark was given supervised visitation, a clear indication of the court's concern for his and his family's influence. The child support was ordered, substantial enough to allow me to breathe, to truly begin again. It felt like an enormous weight had been lifted from my shoulders, a physical burden I hadn't realized I was carrying until it was gone. Mark's family, infuriated by the outcome, initially threatened to appeal, to drag me through more legal battles. But Ms. Davies, with her quiet efficiency, presented them with a stack of documentation, evidence of their calculated neglect, their public disparagement, their attempts to undermine my parenting. They saw the writing on the wall. They backed down. The threat of further public exposure, of their reputation being truly tarnished, was enough to silence them. The first thing I did was sell the house. It was a beautiful house, filled with memories, some good, many now tainted. But it was his house, tied to their money, to the life that had crumbled. I needed a fresh start. I needed a place that was truly ours. I packed only what truly mattered: Alex's drawings, a few cherished photos, clothes, and essential furniture. We moved cities, a decision that felt radical, terrifying, and utterly liberating all at once. We chose a vibrant, diverse neighborhood in a new city, one with good schools and a strong sense of community, far away from the judgmental eyes and suffocating influence of Mark's family. It was a new beginning, a leap of faith into the unknown. Alex was excited. He missed his friends, but he embraced the adventure with a resilience that mirrored my own. He understood, in his own way, that this was our escape. Starting over was hard. Very hard. But this time, it was different. This time, I had a purpose, a fierce determination born from pain and vindication. I used a portion of the divorce settlement to start my own daycare center from scratch. It wasn't fancy at first, just a converted storefront in our new neighborhood, painted in bright, cheerful colors. But it was mine. I called it Alex's Haven, a place named for the boy who taught me true strength. I poured every ounce of my energy, my experience, my nursing background, and my newfound conviction into it. Word spread quickly. Parents in the community loved the warm, nurturing environment I created. We focused on emotional development, kindness, and fostering a love for learning. Within 2 years, Alex's Haven had expanded. Today, I employ 5 women. All of them are single moms, just like I was. All of them are smart, capable, and fiercely dedicated. All of them had been underestimated, dismissed by a society that often judges women based on their marital status or their income. We built a family there, a network of support, a sisterhood of resilience. We shared stories, advice, and a common understanding of what it meant to fight for your children and yourself. As for my ex, Mark still pays child support, though it's now managed by his mother's legal team, a constant reminder of his failure. I hear snippets of gossip occasionally. He moved back into his parents' guest house, then apparently his parents' basement, struggling to find new employment, his career derailed by the scandal that quietly followed him. His image, once so pristine, was now irrevocably tarnished by whispers of the messy divorce and the incident with the son. Vivian and Richard tried to salvage his reputation, to pull strings, but the financial world is small and integrity is prized. They couldn't erase the truth. He's often seen at exclusive clubs, drinking too much, a shadow of the ambitious man he once was, still clinging to their coattails. He tries to connect with Alex during his supervised visits, but Alex remains distant, polite, but emotionally unavailable. Their bond, once fractured, never truly healed. They told me I wouldn't survive. They said I would break. They said I was overreacting. But all they really did was set me free. Free from a life of pretense, free from a marriage that was built on lies, free from the suffocating judgment of people who never truly cared. My son showed me the way. He taught me that sometimes the most profound strength comes from the smallest, most honest voice. I found my own worth, not in a man or in a family name, but in my ability to stand on my own 2 feet, to build something beautiful from the rubble of my past, and to empower other women to do the same. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt like you were overreacting to your pain, or if you've been underestimated, dismissed, or told you couldn't survive on your own, please take a moment to like this video. Your support helps amplify these vital stories and creates a community of strength. Share it with someone who needs to hear that their worth is not measured by others' judgment, by their relationship status, or by their income, but by their courage and their spirit. Leave a comment below and tell me your story. Tell me about a time you found your own quiet strength, or when a child's truth cut through the noise. I read every single word, and your stories inspire me. And if you want more stories that speak to the heart of resilience, of fierce independence, and of unexpected triumphs, remember this: sometimes the greatest freedom comes from walking away. And often, it is our children who show us the way to our true liberation. Your worth is unwavering, no matter what others say.